Hi, welcome to Lily's Story channel. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe. Now the story begins. My mate, Cashin, Alpha of the Celestial Night Pack, had excused himself yet again, leaving me alone in the Too Bright hospital. It wasn't unexpected. His sudden departures had become routine, each one carving at me until I no longer bled. I swallowed the medication handed to me by the pack healer, the bitterness settling on me tongue before I forced it down. Out of habit, I scrolled through Twitter. A post caught my eye, Cashin's name tagged in bright blue. Just a small scratch, but he insisted on dragging me to the infirmary. He's been with me ever since. After all this time, you're still the best. I stared at the screen. No anger surged, no bitter jealousy twisted in my gut. Caring was too heavy a weight to bear. So I let it go, slipping through my fingers like sand. Sometime later, photos from the Alpha Gala surfaced in my inbox. Cashin and Sienna, too close, too familiar. The sight should have burned. Instead, I felt nothing. Then, as if to drive the point further, Cashin walked into the pack house just a few steps ahead of me, cradling Sienna's child in his arms. From behind, they looked like a family. A quiet smile touched my lips, my voice eerily steady as I murmured, "You should spend more time with them, Alpha." Cashin froze. His grip on my arm tightened as he turned to me, something frantic in his gaze. "Alara." His voice wavered. "Why don't you care anymore?" The door creaked open in the middle of the night, rousing me from restless sleep. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Cashin. The bed dipped beside me as he settled in, his presence filling the space that once felt warm but now only suffocated me. A hand reached out, fingers grazing my hair with practiced gentleness. "What did the healer say today?" His voice was soft, careful. A scent clung to him, subtle but unmistakable. A she-wolf's fragrance. Not mine. The pang in my chest was immediate, but I ignored it. I had gotten too good at doing that. "Oh, nothing important," I murmured, shifting just enough to avoid his touch. I forced a smile, though I knew it didn't quite reach my eyes. "Everything's fine." Cashin hesitated. "My position as Alpha has been giving me a hectic schedule lately," he offered, the words too rehearsed, too smooth. Right. The lies were piling up again. Rolling onto my side, I faced away from him. "Maybe you should take a shower before going to bed." For a second, silence stretched between us. Then, without another word, he rose and the sound of running water filled the air. I lay still, listening, waiting. Not for him. Not for an explanation. Just waiting for the feeling in my chest to disappear. Because I no longer cared. The realization hadn't come all at once. It was gradual, creeping in like a slow-burning fire that eventually consumed everything. 2 months had passed since my abortion. It had been an accident. I had slipped, the impact causing too much stress on my stomach. The miscarriage that followed had been inevitable. Cashin had agreed to accompany me to my checkup today. But, as always, when the time came, he found an excuse to leave. I no longer felt the need to chase after him. Instead, I sat quietly in the sterile infirmary, listening to the distant sounds of the pack outside. The healers handed me my test results and medication. I swallowed the pills without much thought and left. The old me would have been heartbroken. The old me would have waited, clinging to the hope that Cashin would come back, that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. But that girl was gone. The final push had come not long after I stepped outside the infirmary. "Celine, you can go home on your own, right? I still have things to do." Cashin's voice in my mind link was casual, indifferent. Once upon a time, I would have begged. "But I need you, Alpha. Please, just this once." Instead, I replied, "Fine." I took a cab back to the pack house, my mind blank. As I settled into my seat, I found myself glancing back at the infirmary's entrance. Cashin's car was still parked outside. So why had he left me? The answer came not long after. Scrolling through Twitter on autopilot, I saw a notification. A post tagging Cashin. "Just had a small scratch, but he insisted on dragging me to the pack's infirmary and has been accompanying me since. After all this time, you're still the best." The words didn't sting. They should have, but they didn't. I had expected it. Sienna Vaughn. I knew her well. Who wouldn't? She was Cashin's childhood sweetheart. Years ago, she had left with her alpha mate, only to return recently, a fallen Luna with a child in tow after her mate's death. The moment she set foot back in Moonvale town, it had been clear where Cashin's heart truly lay. I had just been a placeholder during her absence. And I had been foolish enough to believe that was enough. Later that evening, Cashin returned home. He didn't come alone. I stood in the dimly lit hall of the pack house, watching as he entered, Sienna at his side. In his arms, he carried her child, holding them as though they belonged there. From behind, they looked like a family. A dry chuckle escaped me before I could stop it. The child needs a father figure, huh? My voice was steady, empty. Then spend more time with them, Alpha. Cashin stopped in his tracks. His grip on my arm was immediate, almost desperate. His eyes bore into mine, searching for something, anything. Celine, he murmured, his voice raw, uncertain. Why don't you care anymore? Why don't I care anymore? Because caring had become exhausting. Because loving him had drained me until there was nothing left. The first real crack had appeared long ago. I just hadn't wanted to see it. The Alpha Gala photos that had landed in my inbox a few weeks ago should have been my breaking point. The images of Cashin and Sienna, standing too close, his hand lingering at the small of her back. But I hadn't confronted him. I hadn't said anything at all. That night, when Cashin finally came to bed, I had simply turned away. That was the moment I knew. I didn't need to leave Cashin, because I had already let him go. The following day swept me into a flurry of responsibilities. As Luna, my duties to the pack consumed my time and energy. After wrapping up the morning meeting, a mind link from Cashin interrupted my focus, his tone laced with irritation. Celine, why didn't you wake me up? You left early without telling me, and now I've overslept. A familiar wave of frustration surged through me. Since our mating, I had devoted myself entirely to him, attending to his every need. Each morning, I carefully laid out his clothes lovingly, prepared his breakfast, and gently woke him to ensure his day started smoothly. This routine, one I had meticulously upheld, had become second nature to me. Yet his tone now revealed an unsettling truth: my acts of love had turned into mere obligations and duties he expected me to perform without question. Taking a deep breath, I let the weight of my realization settle. I was not his caretaker, I was his Luna. His unreasonable demands were not mine to obey. Well, since you're running late, you'd better get up soon, I replied, my voice carrying a subtle edge. What am I going to wear today? He asked, as if dressing himself was an impossible task. Just pick something from the closet, Alpha. Everything you need is there, I answered, my patience wearing thin. But I can't find it. His voice trailed off into a familiar whine of dependence. An Omega called for me, and I seized the opportunity to end the ridiculous conversation. I have other matters to attend to. You'll have to manage on your own, I said, turning away. Barely a moment passed before his voice pierced through the mind link again. The shirts are wrinkled. You didn't iron them. How am I supposed to attend a meeting like this? And, as expected, another complaint followed. You didn't prepare anything to eat. As his words echoed in my mind, the weight of my choices bore down on me. I had given up my wolf, my essence, to be with Cashin. I had envisioned a life filled with love, pups, and leadership by his side. But now those dreams feel foolish, naive. Staying with him no longer held any appeal. I felt nothing but emptiness. Desperate for peace, I left the pack house and wandered into a nearby town. There, I found solace in an inn catering exclusively to she-wolves. A sanctuary. A place where I could momentarily escape the suffocating weight of my regrets. Lying on the bed, I stared at the wooden ceiling, lost in memories. Regret clawed at me as I reflected on the past. Then a mind link shattered my thoughts. My daughter. My mother's voice, soft yet filled with concern. The moon goddess. She had always been my guiding light, warning and advising me. And yet here I was drowning in remorse. Her voice was a balm to my wounded spirit, a reminder that I was not alone. But it also served as a stark symbol of the price I had paid for my choices, a burden I would carry forever. Flashback: my 18th birthday, a momentous day for every wolf. Are you excited to find out who your mate is? My mother asked, her eyes shimmering with both joy and apprehension. Yes, Mom. Can you show me? My heart pounded in anticipation. With a wave of her hand, the mystical orb she possessed revealed my destined mate. As the image materialized, I saw him, Alpha Cashin of the Celestial Night Pack in Moonvale Town. His strong, commanding presence filled the orb. My heart soared. But then my mother's smile faded into something more troubled. Your mate, she began, her voice tinged with hesitation. What is it, Mom? A knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. Her gaze softened, her concern unmistakable. He is cursed. His bloodline has been plagued for generations. This curse was placed on by a wolfless woman, betrayed by his ancestor, an Alpha, who was friends with a powerful witch. It is a dangerous fate, Celine. My mind reeled. What kind of curse? What happened? With a deep sigh, she explained, many years ago, an Alpha from Cashin's lineage cruelly rejected his wolfless mate. He belittled her, played with her emotions, and tormented her until she was driven to abort their unborn child. In despair and fury, she sought the aid of her closest friend, the most powerful witch of that time. Together, they cursed his bloodline. Every alpha would be doomed to make their mate wolfless. If you choose Cashin, you will lose your wolf. Your wolf will never wake again. A pang of sorrow pierced my heart. But as I gazed at the orb, I saw more than a curse. I saw the man I had loved long before I knew he was my mate. But I hesitated. My love for Cashin burned brighter than any warning. Mom, I don't care anymore. I'm so sorry, but I will choose my mate. Her eyes widened in silent plea. Are you sure? Think carefully, my daughter. Won't you regret losing your wolf, your essence? I inhaled deeply, the weight of my decision pressing upon me. But, Mom, choosing my wolf means turning away from my fated mate. I choose Alpha Cashin. End of flashback. Regret coursed through me. The choice I had made for love now felt like a distant echo of foolishness. I had embraced my mate, only to later realize the depth of my sacrifice. Outside the window, darkness had settled. I remained silent, ignoring my mother's mind link. I couldn't face her, not after what I had done. The weight of my regret was unbearable, and I let the stillness of the inn swallow me whole. Then, Cashin's mind link intruded again, his voice brimming with impatience. Why aren't you home yet? Where's dinner? A deep, unsettling revulsion stirred within me at the thought of returning to him. I chose to stay at the inn, savoring the quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos I had left behind. If only I had listened to my mother, the wisdom of the moon goddess. I could have been the lunar princess, radiating power and grace, instead of this pitiful Luna, shackled to a faithless alpha. I had something urgent to take care of, I lied, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. Let the maids cook dinner tonight. His surprise was palpable. What? In the past, the very idea of eating food prepared by the maids was beneath him. I had been the one to cater to his every meal, dedicating myself to his comforts. Is there a problem? I asked, my tone edged with challenge. A pause. Then his voice softened, hesitant. No, just take care of yourself. Thank you, I replied flatly, devoid of warmth. A heavy silence stretched between us before he finally asked, Celine, are you angry? His question, so painfully late, stirred something within me. Anger, perhaps, but mostly disappointment. Was he truly this oblivious, or did he simply not care? Yet, with startling clarity, I realized it no longer mattered. The anger had long since faded, leaving behind nothing but emptiness. I'm not angry, I murmured, more to myself than to him. Anger was a luxury I could no longer afford. With an apologetic tone, Cashin reached out through our mind link. Celine, it's difficult for Sienna to raise a child on her own. She doesn't know anyone else here, she only has me. His words hit me like a slap. It was as if he had forgotten that I, too, only had him. But of course, that never mattered to him. I already understand, okay. She must have been through a lot, I replied, forcing myself to sound calm. However, the sarcasm in my voice didn't go unnoticed. Cashin's reaction was immediate and defensive. Celine, what's that supposed to mean? What's with your attitude? I said I understand, I repeated, now with an unmistakable edge in my tone. Is there a problem with that? Do you have to talk to me like that? He snapped, frustration creeping into his voice. I let out a tired sigh. What do you want me to say? I countered, feeling my patience wear thin. A heavy silence settled between us. After a moment, Cashin muttered a curt, fine. Do as you wish, before abruptly severing the mind link. The irony wasn't lost on me. If I questioned his visits to Sienna, I was the annoying one. If I asked when he planned to return, I was still the problem. Now, even trying to be understanding is met with irritation. I shut my eyes tightly, trying to push away the frustration. There were far more important things to focus on, like rediscovering my own path, even if it meant losing the version of myself I once knew. Could I do that, now that I had sacrificed my wolf? The night stretched on as I lingered in the inn, drowning in regrets and unanswered questions. The thought of returning to the pack house was unbearable, yet when I finally did, Cashin was already gone. I took a shower, hoping to wash away the exhaustion, and crawled into bed, seeking refuge in sleep. Just as I began to drift off, Cashin's urgent mind link jolted me awake. Celine, my stomach. It hurts. I mumbled a barely coherent response, too exhausted to care. In my sleep, I vaguely registered him calling my name again, but it felt distant, unimportant. Sometime later, the sound of the door opening startled me awake. Cassiar stood by the bed, his face twisted in pain. Celine, Why don't you care anymore? You used to worry when I was sick. His words stirred up memories I had tried to bury. Once, when he had a stomachache, I had rushed to his office with medicine despite the pouring rain. Arrived drenched, disheveled, a sight that drew laughter from his wolf subordinates. Cashin did nothing to stop them. He simply told me not to show up at his office again because, in his words, I was an embarrassment. If it hadn't been for Beta Adrian and his quiet kindness handing me my favorite chocolate tea to warm me up, I might have shivered all the way back to the pack house. Adrian had always been my silent protector. Every time Cashin belittled me or treated me like a servant, Adrian was there, offering a small act of comfort. I suddenly realized that Adrian had transferred to the Celestial Night Pack around the same time I did. We had known each other since childhood, growing up in the same town. We spent countless hours playing together, running through the woods like normal children. We had even attended the exclusive school for wolves together. That was where I had first seen Alpha Cashin, and foolishly, I had fallen for him long before discovering he was my mate. Lost in these thoughts, I was pulled back to the present by Cashin's expectant gaze. Are you feeling better now? I asked, rubbing my eyes. We might be out of medicine. Maybe you can get some yourself. Cashin stared at me, his frustration evident. Without warning, he grabbed my arm, his grip tight. Celine, how long are you going to keep fighting with me about Sienna? I've told you, there's nothing between us. His words hung in the air, but I met them with a calmness that surprised even me. Oh, okay, I said evenly, my lack of emotion standing in stark contrast to his anger. His frustration boiled over, and he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The silence that followed was liberating. And as I sat there in the quiet, my thoughts drifted back to Adrian, the only person who had ever truly been there for me. He stayed away for several days, and made no effort to ask where he had gone. On the third day, he finally reached out through our mind link. I'm heading to another pack for a meeting, he informed me. Okay, stay safe, I responded, a dry chuckle escaping my lips as the link faded. Absent-mindedly, I opened my social media. A post from Sienna on Twitter immediately caught my attention. First holiday in what seems like forever. I never thought I'd miss the sand on my feet. Someone insisted on bringing me to the beach. The attached photo showed my mate's hand, his mateship ring still on his finger. The location tagged in her tweet was the same place Cashin had just mentioned. Suddenly, the ring on my own finger felt unbearably heavy, as if it burned against my skin. Without hesitation, I yanked it off and tossed it into a drawer. From that moment on, I threw myself into my duties as Luna, using an endless list of tasks to drown out the turmoil inside me. I no longer cared when or if Cashin would return. I simply worked and worked until exhaustion claimed me, leaving no room for anything else. One day, Cashin unexpectedly arrived at the pack house to pick me up. I was caught off guard by the sight of his familiar car parked outside. Fatigue from the day's work clung to me as I approached him. Why are you here? I asked quietly. Did you forget today is our mateship anniversary? He replied, opening the car door for me. Oh, I mumbled. Sorry. I've been really busy, and it slipped my mind. You used to care about this the most. How could you forget? Cashin's voice held both disbelief and disappointment. In the past, I had never missed a single occasion: our mateship anniversary, his birthday, any milestone. I used to plan elaborate dinners, carefully choosing every detail, all to make him feel cherished. But what once brought him joy eventually became an inconvenience. I vividly remembered the time I threw him a surprise party at a restaurant. Instead of being touched, Cashin had pulled me aside, his expression one of embarrassment. Celine, you're making such a big deal out of this. Everyone's looking at us. It's very uncomfortable, you know, he had said, dragging me away in front of the pack warriors and his beta. Now, standing before him, I realized there was nothing left to celebrate. The love and devotion that once defined our bond had faded into nothingness. Come on, let's go have dinner and celebrate, he urged, gesturing toward the car. As he drove, silence settled between us like an unspoken barrier. He kept glancing at me, searching my face for any flicker of the enthusiasm I once had. What's wrong? Are you upset? He finally asked, breaking the tension. No, I said, shaking my head. No, he echoed, frustration creeping into his voice. Then what's with the attitude? Here I am making an effort, picking you up for dinner. Can't you at least pretend to appreciate it? His words hung between us, but I found myself unable to respond. The Cashin who had once meant everything to me now felt like a stranger, and I couldn't force myself to care. His so-called effort felt hollow, meaningless. The bond that had once tethered us together had unraveled, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. I'm not angry, Alpha. Fine, he huffed. Then, as if throwing me a lifeline, he added, I promise no more contact with Sienna, okay? I stared at him, my emotions tangled. Did he truly believe that a simple promise could erase months of lies and betrayal? Are you happy now? He pressed, his gaze locked onto mine, searching for a reaction. I said nothing. The rest of the drive was steeped in silence. At the restaurant, Cashin had gone all out. Our table was adorned with flowers, and beside my plate sat a wrapped gift. It was a picture-perfect setting, designed to mimic romance around us. Other diners cast admiring glances, but I felt nothing, as if I were watching someone else's life unfold before me. Before I could even open my gift, Cashin's phone rang. I watched as his expression darkened with concern. Fever. Do you have any medicine? I can't take you to the PAC's infirmary today, I have something to do. What? That high? Okay, wait for me. I'll be right over. As he hung up, he turned to me, his face taut with awkwardness. Celine, it's Sienna. Her child has a fever. I need to. A lump formed in my throat, but I forced it down. It's fine, I said, my voice eerily monotone. You should go. The child's more important. He hesitated for a moment, his eyes searching mine for some hint of resistance. Wait for me to come back and pick you up. I'll be back soon, he promised before grabbing his coat and rushing out. I sat there alone, staring at the half-eaten cake in front of me. Outside, rain drummed against the window, mirroring the storm within me. But I refused to cry. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to finish the cake, savoring its sweetness despite the bitterness curling in my heart. Then, without a second glance at the abandoned gift, I stood up and left the restaurant. As I stepped into the drizzle, a car passed by and came to a stop. The window rolled down, revealing Beta Adrian. Without a word, he stepped out and opened the door for me. I slid inside, grateful for his presence. The ride back to the PAC house was quiet, but it was a peaceful silence so unlike the suffocating void that existed between Cashin and me. When we arrived, I realized I had no umbrella. The rain continued to fall, icy droplets stinging my skin. Bracing myself for the dash to the entrance, I moved to step out. Wait, Luna. Adrian's voice cut through the rain. I turned to see him holding out an umbrella. Use this, he said, his voice deep and steady. Thank you, I murmured, taking it from him. Once inside, I took a long, hot shower, hoping to wash away the lingering chill. Wrapped in a towel, I sat on the edge of my bed and mindlessly scrolled through social media. Then, Sienna's latest tweet appeared on my feed. The image attached to her post showed Cashin sitting beside her and her child, the warm glow of their room casting them in a perfect light. A stark contrast to the cold rain outside. A painful reminder of the life he had chosen, one that didn't include me. The next morning dragged on as I waited for my mate to return home. When he finally did, he immediately launched into an explanation, his voice heavy with exhaustion and concern. Trisha had a high fever all night. It wouldn't go down. Is she okay now? I asked, making an effort to sound interested. The name Trisha felt foreign and unwelcome on my tongue. Yet, I knew she was Sienna's daughter. Funny how my mate showed more care for another woman's child than for his own mate. He paused mid-motion, irritation flashing briefly across his face. Are you being sarcastic again? His sigh was long and weary, whether genuine or just for show, I couldn't tell. Look, I didn't sleep all night. I'm exhausted. Then you should rest. I have duties to attend to, I said. Reaching for my bag, the responsibilities of a Luna awaited me. Celine. He reached out, his grip gentle yet hesitant. What is it? We'll make up for the mateship anniversary celebration next time, okay? His attempt at reconciliation was met with a faint, empty smile from me. I'm not mad, I murmured. He pulled me into a hug, but the embrace felt hollow, his promises even more so. There's a wolf gathering this weekend, he said, his voice quiet against my hair. Many PACs will attend. Let's go together. The Celestial Night PAC held a prestigious position, not just in Moonvale town, but in the surrounding territories as well. Gatherings like these were prime opportunities for alphas to network, all vying for Cashin's favor. Once being mated to him had felt like a blessing, but as his Luna, I felt nothing but numbness. Despite my efforts, the PAC's elders and warriors still looked at me with disdain, treating me as though I were nothing more than a glorified servant. In the past, I would bring Cashin meals or medicine, even in inconvenient situations like his office. Yet, in front of others, especially the elders or the Omegas, he never acknowledged my presence with respect. Reality snapped back into focus as Cashin clenched his jaw, frustration evident. Well, suit yourself, he muttered. I didn't attend the gathering. But what I hadn't expected was that he would take Sienna instead. As I worked in the office, Luna responsibilities keeping me occupied, my phone buzzed incessantly. Annoyed, checked social media, only to be bombarded with pictures from the gathering. Sienna was in nearly every photo, effortlessly mingling with Cassian and the other alphas, as if she had always belonged there. Oddly enough, Beta Adrian was nowhere to be seen in any of the images. Perhaps he had refused to assist the alpha this time. I often found myself scolding him for his apparent indifference toward serving Cassian, yet that very stubbornness never failed to impress me. As I stared at the tweets, a bitter thought crossed my mind. Why didn't you just become his Luna instead of me, Sienna? One image stood out: Alpha Cassian carrying Sienna like a princess across the lawn, her cheek resting against his chest. The onlookers cheered and showered them with compliments, calling them the perfect match. Unable to ignore what I had just witnessed, I joined the chorus of voices, leaving a single comment on one of the photos: perfect match. A lone clapping emoji punctuated my indifferent acknowledgement. Then, without another thought, I closed the app, silenced my phone, and shut off my mind link. I just wanted peace. Night had already fallen by the time I finished my tasks. When I finally checked my phone again, I found dozens of missed calls and messages from Cassian. Why are you ignoring my mind links? You're not answering my calls as well. Celine, please. Let me explain, okay? It's not what you think it is. As I glanced at the flurry of messages from Cassian, I reluctantly used our mind link. His voice was urgent and pleading when he answered. Celine, why didn't you answer my mind links and calls? Where are you? I went home, but you weren't there. I'm outside your office now, he rattled off. Yes, I'm here. I'm coming down now, I told him, a sense of resignation creeping into my tone. At that moment, another voice sounded. It was familiar. And as always, whenever she would initiate to talk to me, even though we were far away from each other, it always felt magical. My daughter. Please talk to me, the moon goddess, my birth mother, talk to me through a mind link. I sighed as my fist balled. Mom. Celine. She seemed so excited, but at the same time, I could feel her worry all the way down here. I know everything that is happening. Please, my dear. Can't you leave that place already? I can break your mateship. I can sever your fate with him if you want me to. Just please, she was almost begging me. If I were who I was before, I would have declined. I would have been angry, shutting her down. But the idea of ending this mateship seemed good in the ears now. I was tired. Was being wolfless worth it? Of course not. Of course not. Not even my mate was constantly cheating behind my back. Not when my alpha thought of me as a replacement for his first love, Sienna. Now that her mate, her alpha, had died, she was back. And now, all his attention was on the woman and her child. We can wake your wolf up. I promise that, okay? Just choose yourself this time. Choose to leave. As I descended to the ground floor, Cassian's car pulled up. He got out and walked over, taking the folder from my hand. Let's go home, the alpha said, his voice tinged with a mix of concern and weariness. I reached for the car door, but my stomach twisted at the sight that greeted me. Sienna sitting comfortably in the passenger seat. She smiled at me, her apology ringing hollow as she chirped, I'm sorry, Celine, I get carsick easily. Could you sit in the back for now? The audacity of her intrusion, not just into our mateship but into my personal space, was a bitter pill to swallow. The alpha, ever the accommodating mate, interjected before I could object. Celine, Sienna's stomach is sensitive. Please sit in the back for now. I'll drop her off first, then you can move to the front. There's no need to switch, I muttered tersely. The back is fine. With a forced smile, I settled into the back seat. The leather offered no comfort from the icy tendrils of betrayal that gripped my heart. Sienna, oblivious to the turmoil within me, started a conversation, trying to justify her presence and Cassian's actions. I haven't been back in a while, and I'm not familiar with many places, she said, glancing at me. Plus, I usually have to take care of Trisha, so I don't get out much. Cassian was free today, so he took me out. You don't mind, do you? I don't mind, I replied flatly, my words lacking any genuine feeling. A sarcastic thought crossed my mind, laced with dark humor. Did you have fun? If not, let my mate take you somewhere else next time. He's free on weekends. Cassian's expression darkened, but Sienna placated him with a touch and a smile. His arm is sore from carrying me today, she remarked. We won't go out again anytime soon, right, Alpha Cassian? He's been working so hard, too. My mate nodded stiffly, clearly uncomfortable. After dropping Sienna off at her place, he turned to me, his frustration palpable. Celine, come sit in the front. There's no need, Alpha, I replied evenly. The back is perfectly spacious and comfortable. Annoyance flashed across Cashin's face. Stop being difficult, he snapped. I only took Sienna out because she was bored. She hasn't been out in a while, and I just wanted to keep her company. His excuses rang hollow in my ears. I believe you, I said tonelessly, though my conviction was lacking. Let's just go home. With a sigh, Cashin exited the car and moved to sit beside me in the back seat. His hand brushed mine, seeking reassurance. Do you really not care? Are you pretending to be okay out of spite? I believe you, I repeated mechanically. As he hugged me, promising to keep his distance from Sienna, I couldn't help but feel a distant detachment. The hurt and anger were there, but they felt remote, overshadowed by a cold realization that I no longer needed him. The decision to leave had been made, silently and resolutely. Maybe ending this mateship was better. Okay, I murmured, the words almost lost in the growing chasm between us. My mother was right. Staying here was torture, and the more I lingered, the more I lost myself. As Cashin began keeping his promise and coming home on time each day, I immersed myself in the final duties as Luna of Golden Moon. The weekend brought a welcome distraction when Beta Adrian invited me out. I informed Cashin of my plans, and his casual response rang with an undertone of relief. I have to work overtime with the elders this weekend, so I can't join you. Go have fun with whoever you're with. His nonchalant dismissal stirred fresh suspicion within me, but I pushed it aside, clinging to a fragile hope that perhaps things had truly changed. Yet fate seemed intent on testing that hope. As Beta Adrian and I turned the corner towards the chocolate tea shop alley, my breath caught in my throat. There, in a brightly lit children's restaurant, sat Cashin. Trisha giggled on his lap, a mess of tomato sauce and laughter, while Sienna hovered nearby, the picture of domestic contentment. Sienna's smile as she wiped sauce from Trisha's mouth cut through me like a knife. They looked like a family, and the Alpha, with a genuine smile on his face, seemed completely at ease. Beta Adrian's gentle nudge snapped me out of my trance. Luna, are you okay? I managed a brittle smile, a facade to hide the devastation churning within. Just as I turned to leave, movement inside the restaurant caught my eye. The Alpha had spotted me. Before I could retreat, he dashed out, calling my name desperately. Celine! He caught up to me and grabbed my hand. Trisha was upset and crying, so we came out for fries. That's why I'm here. His explanation, tinged with desperation, fell on deaf ears. My hand instinctively recoiled from his touch, as if scorched. It's fine, Alpha. Go back to them. But my mate shook his head stubbornly. No, I'll come with you. Why are you with Beta Adrian? Let me accompany you. There's no need. Beta Adrian can handle it, I replied tersely. His brows furrowed, irritation flashing in his eyes at the thought of me being with Beta Adrian. He tightened his grip on my hand, refusing to let go. I can accompany the Luna perfectly well, Alpha, Beta Adrian interjected firmly. Go back to your family. Cashin's presence bristled in the alley, drawing attention from passers-by. What do you mean by that? Do you know who you're talking with? His voice carried a dangerous edge, his Alpha authority asserting itself. To my surprise, Beta Adrian didn't flinch. Instead, he released an overwhelming wave of his wolf presence, an aura stronger than Cashin's own. It seemed to give Cashin pause, his stance tensing as if preparing for a confrontation. Before Cashin could react further, a small hand tugged at his other arm. Daddy, I want you to take me to the amusement park. After the tense encounter in the alley, both Cashin's and Beta Adrian's imposing presences dissipated. I blinked rapidly, trying to process what had just unfolded. Had I imagined Beta Adrian's strength just now? Beside me, Beta Adrian appeared calm and composed, as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. Was it all in my ad? Sienna emerged from the restaurant, her voice oozing with insincere sympathy. Celine, I'm sorry, Trisha is still young and doesn't understand. Yes, Trisha was young, but even children should know not to call another she-wolf's mate daddy. Basic etiquette should have been taught at home, shouldn't it? With a curt nod in Sienna's direction, turned to face Cashin. My voice, once brimming with simmering anger, was now tinged with indifference. You're right, Alpha Cashin. A child needs a father figure. Perhaps you should spend more time with them. I pulled my hand from his grasp and began to walk away with Beta Adrian. Yet my mate let go of the child's hand and followed me. Celine, wait, listen to me. Behind us, Trisha began to cry loudly and Sienna comforted her. They both looked pitiful, as if I were the one tearing their family apart. There's nothing to explain, I replied flatly. It's perfectly clear. Celine, please, just listen, the alpha pleaded, gripping my hand tightly. It's about the child. Celine, you have to understand. Losing his alpha father at such a young age, isn't it tragic? That's why she's so attached to me. Can't you see that, Celine? I understand, I said tersely, stopping in my tracks. What did he expect me to understand? The hypocrisy. In our first year of marriage, his family pressured us to have children. His parents had even started blaming me, thinking it was my fault we hadn't conceived yet. But my mate had always assured me he wasn't ready, that we should wait. Little did I know it wasn't readiness. That was not the issue, it was simply that he didn't want children with me. All he wanted since then was Sienna, his first love. And perhaps he wanted her to be his fated mate instead. Silence stretched between us, and just as I turned to leave, he stepped in front of me, blocking my path. Celine, why? He stammered. Why aren't you angry anymore? What are you thinking? I met his gaze, my expression was neutral. He searched my eyes, desperately seeking a trace of the woman who would fight for him. But at that moment his phone buzzed insistently. When he glanced at it, I saw the name on the screen, Sienna, my love, a painful reminder of his betrayal. The alpha still answered the call. Don't cry, he murmured. What's wrong? A pause, then a sharp intake of breath. Trisha is missing. How did that happen? Stay calm, I'm coming right away. After hanging up, he seemed torn between explaining himself to me and just letting me rush off with Beta Adrian. His hesitation and the flicker of guilt in his eyes spoke volumes, yet the panic was clear. I simply stepped aside, creating an unobstructed path for him. Go quickly, I said quietly, my voice devoid of emotion. He pocketed his phone, hesitated for a moment, then hurried past me, leaving me standing there, grappling with the shattered remnants of what was once our bond. In one of the countless moments that stemmed not just from courage, but from a desperate need to escape my misery, I stood firm. One word from you, my dear. I will end your suffering. I will end that cursed mateship. I could still hear my mother's voice asserted, her tone steady with determination to help me. Hours blended together as I carefully packed my belongings, folding the clothes with practiced efficiency. Amidst doing those things, Cashin returned home earlier than expected, catching me nearly finished with my preparations. Celine, he stammered, confusion evident in his voice, seeing what I was doing. What are you doing? His gaze fell upon the half-packed suitcase on the bed, searching for answers. It was easy to tell that he was taken aback. Did you find the child? I asked calmly, continuing to sort through my things and shifting the conversation. He ignored my question, snatching clothes from my hands. Said, what are you doing? Why are you packing your things? His desperation was palpable, contrasting sharply with the decisiveness of his decision to abandon me earlier. Now you are hesitating. Sitting on the edge of the bed, maintained a carefully neutral expression. I'm leaving tomorrow, going back to Ashenwood Town. Ashenwood Town, a place of solace where, despite my mother, the moon goddess, rarely descending from the heavens, I found happiness. It was a haven with dear friends, nurturing elderly wolves, and Adrian Clark, the enigmatic beta, who always appeared when I needed him. In those days I was content. Yet, foolishly, I chose this alpha over my unseen wolf companion. Why, again, did I choose him over my wolf? His shock bordered on disbelief. What? You're going back to Ashenwood? You didn't even talk to me about this. We need to talk. Raising an eyebrow, I offered a silent challenge. Why should I discuss it with you? Can't I make my own decisions? The words felt unfamiliar to my tongue, but strangely empowering. So this was what it was like to talk back to him. He surged forward, pushing aside the suitcase and attempting to sit beside me. No, you can't go. A humorless smile tugged at my lips. And what makes you think you can stop me, Alpha Cashin? I asked, my voice laced with newfound resolve. No one, not even Cashin, could stop me now. I was done putting him above myself. I was done being his servant. I was done putting up with his bullshit. Because I am your mate. Now he remembered our mateship, the same bond he had overlooked while playing the role of a happy family man with Sienna. It was too late for regrets. I didn't care anymore. I smiled slightly. Then let's end this mateship, I declared firmly, my voice carrying a finality that echoed through the room. The love, trust, and dreams we once shared were now nothing but ashes in the wind. Deciding to return to Ashenwood meant severing all ties with him. It was a decision I had contemplated for a long time, and my driving force was my mother's urge to let me prioritize my own well-being this time. As a goddess, my mother could save me from this consuming misery. I knew she always had my back. He was stunned, disbelief etched deeply on his face. Wah! What? I said, we should end this mateship. We can't do that. He immediately protested, his eyes reddened as he tightly gripped my hand. Celine, you're just angry, right? We've been together since you were 18. You wouldn't throw that away so easily, would you? Please, I've been trying to consider your feelings. What more do you want from me? His attempt to portray himself as the devoted mate, and me as fickle, was almost comical. I waited patiently for him to finish. I don't want anything from you, Alpha Cashin, I finally stated, my voice calm yet resolute, devoid of anger. Except to end this tangled and miserable mateship. He pulled me into his arms, his voice trembling with emotion. How could you leave me? Do you not love me anymore? Love? What did it even mean in our relationship? Third person's POV flashback. In the heart of Ashenwood Town, nestled amidst towering trees and winding paths, Adrian Clark, the spirited son of the Alpha, navigated his childhood days with a curious blend of duty and defiance. As the heir apparent to the pack, his future seemed predestined, a path laid out in accordance with tradition and expectation. Yet, fate had a way of weaving unexpected threads into the tapestry of his life. One crisp autumn afternoon, driven by youthful curiosity and restlessness that belied his station, Adrian ventured beyond the familiar confines of his pack's territory. It was on one of these exploratory excursions that he first laid eyes upon her Celine, a girl whose presence seemed to shimmer with an ethereal light amidst the mundane backdrop of Ashenwood Town. She was surrounded by a group of rowdy wolf children, their playful banter taking a cruel turn as they cornered her near the edge of the forest. Adrian, drawn inexplicably to her vulnerability and resilience, intervened without a second thought. Hey, leave her alone! Adrian's voice rang out, cutting through the air with a commanding tone that startled even himself. The bullies hesitated, momentarily taken aback by the unexpected interruption. Celine, her hands and knees bruised from the rough tumble, looked up at Adrian with a mixture of relief and curiosity. Thank you, she murmured softly, her eyes holding a blend of gratitude and wariness. Adrian nodded curtly our response, his gaze lingering on her for a fleeting moment longer than necessary. There was something about her, something that ignited a spark of protectiveness within him, a desire to shield her from the harsh realities of their world. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months, as Adrian found himself crossing paths with Celine more frequently. Their encounters became a regular occurrence, each meeting revealing new facets of her spirited personality that captivated him. Under the sprawling branches of the ancient oak tree, they would often meet after school, sharing stories and dreams beneath the dappled sunlight that filtered through the leaves above. What's your favorite place in Ashenwood Town? Celine asked one afternoon, a mischievous twinkle in her eyes. Adrian considered her question thoughtfully, his mind wandering to the hidden groves and secret paths he had discovered during his explorations. There's a clearing near the river, he finally replied, his voice tinged with a hint of excitement. It's quiet and secluded, a place where I go to think. Celine smiled warmly, her gaze softening as she studied him with newfound curiosity. I'd like to see it sometime, she admitted shyly, her fingers tracing patterns on the soft earth beneath them. As the seasons changed and they grew older, their bond deepened into a steadfast companionship that defied the boundaries imposed by their respective positions within the pack hierarchy. They explored the hidden corners of Ashenwood Town together, sharing secrets and dreams beneath the starlit skies that framed their world. Their friendship became a source of solace and strength amidst the tumultuous currents of adolescence. Adrian, harboring feelings that had blossomed quietly over the years, found himself drawn to Celine in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. It was during their time at the exclusive academy for wolves that their lives took an unexpected turn. Amidst the corridors bustling with students and the whispered rumors of impending alliances, they encountered Cashin, a charismatic figure destined to lead the Celestial Knight pack. Adrian observed Celine's growing infatuation with Cashin from a distance, silently grappling with his own burgeoning feelings. Do you think Cashin will like me? Celine asked one evening, her eyes alight with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. Adrian forced a smile, masking the turmoil raging beneath the surface. Maybe, he replied softly, his voice betraying none of the ache that threatened to consume him. As months passed and their graduation approached, Adrian dared to hope that Celine's feelings for Cashin were fleeting, a passing fancy that would fade with time. But fate had other plans. On the eve of her 18th birthday, Celine's announcement shattered Adrian's fragile illusions. Alpha Cashin is my mate, she declared, her words echoing in the quiet stillness of the night. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, leaving Adrian reeling in disbelief and heartache. He struggled to reconcile the overwhelming sense of loss with the fierce determination to support Celine, no matter the personal cost. "I'm going with her," Adrian asserted defiantly to his father and the elders, their disapproving glares and heated objections falling on deaf ears. "I need to be where she is." Despite the anger and disappointment that clouded their parting, Adrian knew deep down that he was making the right choice. He followed Celine to the Celestial Night Pack, leaving behind the familiar comforts of Ashenwood Town and the expectations of his upbringing. Becoming the beta of the Celestial Night Pack offered Adrian a new purpose, a chance to protect Celine from the shadows, to safeguard her happiness even as his own heart remained tethered to her. End of flashback. In the present day, Beta Adrian Clark paced restlessly along the perimeter of the Celestial Night Pack's territory, his thoughts consumed by memories of a time long past. He had watched helplessly as Celine's once vibrant spirit gradually dimmed under the weight of unfulfilled expectations and silent suffering. "If only I could decide for her," Adrian muttered to himself, his voice carrying a note of frustration and regret. "If only I could protect her from the choices that bind her." But Adrian had made a solemn promise, a vow etched in the depths of his soul. When the moment came when Celine faced danger or despair, he would trade everything to ensure her safety and well-being. As twilight descended over the land, casting long shadows across the rolling hills, Adrian's resolve hardened. He would wait, vigilant and ready, for the opportunity to fulfill the oath he had sworn to be the unwavering guardian and protector of the woman he had loved since childhood. In the quiet solitude of the night, beneath the watchful gaze of the moon, Adrian Clark stood sentinel, his heart aching with a love that had endured across time and distance. IRD person's POV. In the early days of their youth, Cashin and Sienna found solace in the quiet corners of Bellflower, where the world seemed to slow down and their friendship blossomed like the wildflowers around them. One afternoon, they escaped to a secluded meadow where rare bluebells swayed in the breeze. Sienna's eyes lit up with delight as she stumbled upon the patch of bluebells, her laughter ringing out like music in Cashin's ears. He couldn't resist the urge to see her smile, so he gathered a bouquet of the delicate blooms, his heart pounding with nervous excitement. "For you," he murmured, presenting the flowers to her with a shy smile. Sienna's face lit up with joy as she accepted the bouquet, her fingers brushing against his in a fleeting touch that sent a thrill through Cashin's veins. "Oh, Cashin, they're beautiful," she exclaimed, her voice filled with genuine appreciation. She twirled amidst the blossoms, her odor echoing through the quiet meadow, and Cashin couldn't help but join in, caught up in the magic of the moment. As they sat together in the shade of an old oak tree, Sienna turned to Cashin with a soft smile. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes shimmering with unspoken affection. She reached out, placing her hand over his tea, their fingers entwining in a silent promise of friendship and deeper connection. Years later, their idyllic world shattered when Sienna received the fateful news she had a mate from another pack, and their bond was undeniable. Cashin stood rooted in disbelief as Sienna struggled to explain, her voice thick with sorrow. "I have to go," she pleaded softly. "I can't stay, Cashin." Cashin felt as though the ground had shifted beneath him, the weight of heartache settling heavily in his chest. He watched helplessly as Sienna walked away, her silhouette fading into the distance. The emptiness that followed was a bitter reminder of lost dreams and shattered promises. In the aftermath of Sienna's departure, Cashin buried himself in the responsibility of leading the Celestial Night Pack. His heart guarded against further pain. When fate introduced him to Celine, a spirited young woman whose presence brought both solace and confusion, Cashin found himself grappling with conflicting emotions. Despite the undeniable bond they shared, Cashin struggled to reconcile his lingering attachment to Sienna with the growing affection he felt for Celine. He treated Celine with a cool detachment, unable to fully embrace their connection out of fear that history would repeat itself. But amidst the tumult of his heart, there were fleeting moments when Cashin's resolve faltered. He would catch himself drawn to Celine's laughter or the warmth in her eyes, his denial giving way to a growing awareness of her importance in his life. Just as Cashin began to convince himself that he could bury the past, fate dealt him another unexpected blow. Sienna returned to Bellflower with her young daughter Trisha, in tow a sweet-natured child who bore a striking resemblance to her mother. Cashin, torn between duty and unresolved feelings, welcomed Sienna and Trisha back into his life with a mixture of compassion and confusion. He shielded them from the scrutiny of the pack, weaving a delicate web of lies and half-truths to protect their fragile peace. And now, inside their quarters at the heart of the pack house, Alpha Cashin and Selene, his Luna, stood locked in a tense and volatile confrontation. The air was thick with the weight of unspoken grievances and the crackle of alpha dominance. "I won't let you leave," Selene, Cashin declared, his voice a harsh growl that reverberated off the walls. His eyes blazed with a dangerous mix of anger and possessiveness. "You belong here with me. The Celestial Night Pack is your home. Do you think Ashenwood won't shun you after knowing you are nothing but a wolfless woman?" However, Selene met his intense gaze with steely defiance, her resolve unwavering despite the storm brewing around them. "I've made my decision, Cashin," she retorted firmly, her voice tinged with frustration. "Ashenwood Town is where I need to be. It is better there than stay in misery in your pack." Cashin's jaw clenched, his frustration boiling over into a tempest of alpha authority. "You think you can just walk away from me? You are nothing. You are wolfless, Selene," he demanded, advancing towards her with purposeful strides. His alpha power surged around them, a tangible force that sought to bend her to his will. Selene held her ground, her eyes flashing with defiance as she backed away slightly, her suitcase gripped tightly in her hand. "I'm not your possession, Alpha," she shot back, her voice laced with indignation. "I have the right to choose my own path." Cashin's control slipped further, his alpha instincts pushing him beyond reason. With a sudden surge of raw power, he seized Selene with his arm, his grip firm and commanding. "Listen to me," he commanded, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. "You're making a mistake. You'll regret leaving me." Selene struggled against his grasp, fear, and frustration mingling in her eyes as she tried to free herself. "Let go of me, Cashin," she demanded, her voice rising with a mix of anger and desperation. "You can't force me to stay." But Cashin's grip tightened, his alpha authority asserting itself with unwavering force. "You belong to me, Selene," he growled, his voice filled with possessive determination. "You don't get to decide this." In that charged moment, as the tension between them reached a breaking point, Cashin's alpha power erupted in a violent surge that sent shockwaves through the pack house. The air crackled with energy, every member of the Celestial Night Pack feeling the seismic shift in their alpha's authority. Selene's POV. In the heart of turmoil, where emotions clashed like thunderheads, Cashin's grip on me tightened. His anger flared as I stood before him, wounded and defiant, tears threatening to fall. "How dare you hurt my daughter?" A voice boomed, resonating with such authority that it shook the very foundation of the pack house. The air shimmered, and the moon goddess, my mother, herself materialized, radiant and powerful. Her presence commanded attention and awe. Cashin staggered back, shock etched across his face as he beheld the luminous figure before us. He knew instantly that she was no ordinary being. This was the moon goddess, her form bathed in a celestial glow that spoke of untold power and ancient wisdom. My voice trembled, a mixture of fear and courage coursing through me, as I stepped forward to confront Cashin. "How dare you hurt me?" I began, my words slicing through the charged atmosphere. "All I did was care for and love you, despite everything. You've betrayed that trust." Cashin's expression hardened, his pride wounded but his denial still strong. "I don't get it. What the hell is going on here? And why are you blaming me for everything?" He retorted bitterly. "You're the one leaving, tearing our bond apart. I hate you." I screamed, years of suppressed pain fueling my words. "You never understood. You call me wolfless, but it's because I chose you. Do you even know the curse that binds your lineage?" Cashin's eyes widened in disbelief. "Curse?" he echoed, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "What curse?" I pressed on, the revelation weighing heavy in my heart. "Your ancestors were cursed centuries ago," I explained, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. "Anyone who mates with an alpha of your lineage becomes wolfless." Cashin recoiled, his mind struggling to process the weight of my words. "No," he muttered, shaking his head in denial. "That can't be true." Then the moon goddess moved with grace, her ethereal form radiating power. With a gesture that seemed to defy the very fabric of destiny, she intervened, severing the mateship bond that bound Cashin and me together. The air hummed with the magnitude of her actions, the repercussions echoing through the pack house. The moon goddess staggered, her form wavering as she coughed, blood staining her lips, a testament to the toll such a profound act took on even a deity. "Mom," I gasped, but she just smiled, even though her almost golden blood gushed from her mouth. At that moment, within me, a sensation unlike any I had ever known surged through my being. It was as if a dormant part of myself had been awakened from a deep slumber. A warmth spread through my veins, suffusing me with newfound strength and clarity. As the bond shattered, I felt a transformation unfold within me. My senses heightened, colors became more vibrant, and an inner calm settled over me. My eyes, once a familiar hue, now shimmered with a newfound intensity, a reflection of the wolf spirit awakening within me. And then, as if in response to the moon goddess's intervention, a voice resonated in my mind, a voice that was both ancient and familiar. Finally, I am awake, my wolf spirit declared, its presence filling me with a sense of completion and purpose. In that moment of change and realization, I stood transformed, no longer bound by a mateship that had brought more pain than joy. Elara. Celine's POV. As the moon goddess's words echoed through the pack house, I felt a powerful change happening inside me. I finally felt like I was free. My mating bond with Cashin broke, and I transformed into my true form, a large, majestic white wolf. My fur glowed under the moonlight, shining with a soft, celestial light. My eyes turned bright gold, full of wisdom and power. Elara, the moon goddess, called my wolf form, her voice full of pride and authority. It's good that you're awake. Protect my child. Lifting my head high, I stood proud and strong. A deep growl built in my chest, turning into a mighty howl that pierced the night. It was a howl of freedom, strength, and a spirit that was no longer tied down. My howl echoed across the pack lands, announcing my rebirth and readiness to embrace my destiny. Outside the pack house, the Celestial Night pack members had gathered, drawn by the alpha power they felt earlier when Cashin got angry. They watched in awe as I stood before them, a symbol of power and grace, fully awakened to my true self. This wasn't that useless, wolfless Luna they used to know. What the hell, is that really the Luna? The goddess? Goodness gracious, we are in the presence of the goddess. Am I dreaming? Meanwhile, my eyes were drawn to Beta Adrian, who was among the onlookers, and he was standing with pride and admiration. Were those eyes for me? I saw his eyes linger on me, amazed by my transformation into Elara. Or was he amazed that I was the lunar princess? On the other hand, Sienna, who had arrived in the chaos, looked stunned. But no one was more shocked than Alpha Cashin. His disbelief quickly turned to anger and resentment as he realized what I had become. My daughter, the moon goddess said, her voice breaking the silence after my howl, you are now the lunar princess. Gasps spread through the gathered pack members. Cashin's eyes widened with shock. He turned to me, his face twisting in fury. You lied to me, he shouted, his voice full of rage. How dare you lie to me? I am your mate, your alpha. You didn't even tell me about this. His voice was filled with anger and hurt. I met his glare calmly. I never lied to you, I said firmly. I didn't have to tell you everything about me, especially when you never treated me right. Cashin's face turned red with anger, his eyes burning with pride and resentment. You should have told me, he yelled, stepping closer. As your mate and alpha, I had the right to know. I should have known I was with the moon goddess's daughter. I let out a bitter laugh and growl. The right, I repeated, amazed. You think you had the right to control me and know everything while you treated me as your maid. You never earned that right. Cashin's fists clenched, his knuckles turning white. You're mine, he shouted. You belong to me in this pack. You can't just leave. How could you betray me like this? I was ready to say something, but my mother suddenly stepped up, her face still pale, making me worried. Mom, are you okay? Although I was pissed with Cashin, my mother's well-being was my top priority. She went against our fate. It must have taken a toll on her body. The moon goddess came closer to me, her presence comforting. I need some time to recover. Let's meet again soon, sweetheart, she whispered, her form starting to fade, leaving warmth and guidance behind. My eyes watered, feeling thankful for everything she had done to me till that day. You didn't have to worry anymore, my dear mother. The moment my mother disappeared, Cashin moved closer, looking desperate and angry. You can't leave, he pleaded. You're my Luna. You belong here with me in the Celestial Night Pack. He looked at Adrian, who watched me with reverence and protection. Beta Adrian, Cashin called, sounding desperate. Help me convince her to stay. She belongs here. Beta Adrian looked at Cashin with steady resolve. Selena Lara deserves to make her own choices now, he said calmly. She's not yours to command anymore, Alpha Cashin. Standing tall, I looked at Cashin with clear eyes. The uncertainty I had in my human form was gone. I had found my true self, embraced my destiny, and reclaimed my power. As the lunar princess, I knew I didn't belong by Cashin's side anymore, but had to follow my own path. And so, with tension and uncertainty in the air, I stood firm. I was a symbol of strength and independence, a sign of the power of choice and the enduring spirit of the wolf within me. Celine's POV. The air in the pack house was thick with tension as I stood tall in my majestic wolf form. Beside me, Beta Adrian's presence was reassuring. He had stood by my side through years of heartache and uncertainty. But now, with me transformed into Alara, the lunar princess, his support was unwavering. Cashin, still reeling from the sudden and dramatic events, struggled to comprehend the scene unfolding before him. His eyes darted between my glowing, majestic wolf form and Adrian, who had just stepped forward, his expression hardening with determination. I don't need to pretend anymore, Beta Adrian said, calm but edging with steel. I no longer need to pretend I agree with your stupidity, now that Celine has found herself and is free from your bullshit. Cashin's face twisted with anger and confusion. He had always seen Adrian as the obedient Beta, someone who would never challenge his authority. But now, Adrian's words cut through him like a knife. You are nothing but a rat of an alpha, Cashin, Adrian continued, stepping closer, his tone dripping with contempt. Thanks to your foolishness in angering the goddess, I can now leave this place with Celine. A victorious smirk crossed Adrian's face as he reached out and gently caressed my fur. My eyes, glowing with a fierce golden light, reflected both gratitude and strength. Adrian's fingers brushed through my fur, a silent promise of protection and unwavering loyalty. Cashin's anger flared, his pride and possessiveness blinding him to the truth. You think you can just leave? He spat, his voice trembling with rage. You think you can take her away from me? I am the alpha, she's mine. She was never yours, Cashin, Adrian shot back, his voice steady. You may have been her mate, but you never treated her with the respect and love she deserved. You're the one who's been playing games, not her. Cashin's eyes blazed with fury as he stepped forward, his alpha aura flaring in a desperate attempt to assert his dominance. The power radiating from him was intense, pressing down on everyone in the room. Pack members staggered back under the weight of his presence, but Adrian remained unmoved, his stance solid and unwavering. Cashin sneered, pushing harder. You're nothing but a beta, he shouted, his voice echoing through the pack house. You think you can intimidate me? You think you can take what's mine? Upon hearing that, Adrian's smirk widened as he met Cashin's gaze. Then he let his own power surge. It was as if a dam had broken. For years, he had hidden the true extent of his strength, keeping it in check out of loyalty and a desire to protect me. But now he unleashed it all. The room vibrated with Beta Adrian's raw power, a force far greater than anything Cashin could muster. His aura expanded, washing over Cashin's, consuming it effortlessly. The sheer intensity of Adrian's presence made Cashin's alpha aura seem weak and insignificant by comparison. Is he really this strong? You've underestimated me for years, Cashin, Adrian said, his voice calm but brimming with suppressed strength. I put up with your weak ass and followed your commands to protect Celine. But now she's stronger than you could ever imagine. Cashin's face twisted in disbelief and denial. He couldn't accept the reality crashing down around him. She's playing tricks, he shouted, his voice cracking with desperation. This is just another game to get my attention. She doesn't want to leave. Adrian shook his head, pity in his eyes. You're blind. Celine has chosen her path, and it doesn't include you. The mateship that once tied you to her is broken. Cashin's frustration boiled over, and he lashed out with words that cut deep. You think you're so fucking noble, don't you, Adrian? Always lurking in the shadows, pretending to be the loyal beta. You're just a coward, hiding behind your facade of strength. You don't deserve her, she's my mate. I looked at Cashin, seeing him clearly for the first time. He was blinded by his own pride and refusal to see the truth. I had made my choice. I had found my strength, my true self, and my path forward. And it did not include him. I didn't let up. I pressed forward, my claws tearing through his fur, my jaws snapping at his vulnerable spots. Each strike was a reminder of the power I had reclaimed, the strength I had found within myself. Cashin tried to fight back, but his movements were sluggish, weakened by blood loss and relentless assault. With a final, powerful shove, I sent Cashin sprawling to the ground. Blood oozed from his wounds, staining his fur. He lay there, panting and defeated, unable to rise. I placed a heavy paw on his head, pressing him into the dirt. He whimpered, his eyes filled with fear and disbelief. You are no longer the alpha, I declared, my voice echoing through the silent pack house. You are banished from the Celestial Night Pack. Leave now and never return. Cashin's eyes flickered with a mix of rage and humiliation. He tried to rise, but I pressed down harder, forcing him to stay low. You've lost. Cashin, I said softly, my voice filled with a dangerous calm. Accept it. The pack members watched in stunned silence as I stood over Cashin, my form glowing with an almost divine light. They had seen their alpha brought low, not by another alpha, but by me, the one he had underestimated and mistreated for so long. Adrian stepped forward, pride and admiration shining in his eyes as he looked at me. V1, he said softly. With a final glance at the defeated Cashin, I turned away, feeling the weight of the past lifting off my shoulders. It was time to move forward, to embrace my destiny as the Lunar Princess. The end. Celine's POV. After the intense confrontation, the Celestial Night Pack was left reeling. My powerful roar still reverberated in everyone's ears. Cashin, the once arrogant alpha, now lay defeated. Standing tall in my human form, tinged with remnants of my wolf's power, I addressed the gathered pack with unwavering determination. You've betrayed our trust and caused harm. For this, I, as the daughter of Moon Goddess, banish you from our Celestial Night Pack. You are not welcome here ever again, I declared firmly to Cashin, who protested in disbelief, insisting, You can't do this. I'm the alpha. With a slight smirk, I retorted, Not anymore. You are no longer fit to lead, Cashin. Everyone saw how you were defeated by me. From this moment on, you, Sienna, and Trisha are banished. Live as rogues. Sienna, who had arrived during the turmoil, looked fearful. Please, Celine, she pleaded. We have nowhere to go. You should have considered that before, I replied sternly, withholding any hint of sympathy. You were complicit in this betrayal, Sienna. Do not expect leniency now. Meanwhile, Trisha clung to her mother, visibly confused and scared. Cashin glared at me, seething with anger and desperation. You'll regret this, he spat. This pack won't survive without me. Meeting his gaze with steely resolve, I asserted, We will survive. We will thrive. Without you. After that tumultuous night, Cashin, Sienna, and Trisha left, disappearing into the shadows. Honestly, I felt numb. Their departure didn't evoke pity or sorrow from me. The Celestial Night Pack needed to move forward. As dusk settled, I turned to the pack members standing before me. Celestial Night Pack, I began, intending to express gratitude and perhaps bid farewell, But before I could speak, an elder wolf stepped forward. His fur was weathered, his eyes wise and gleaming in the moonlight. Celine, he proclaimed, his voice resonating with authority. You have shown exceptional courage and strength in defeating our former Alpha Cashin. Witnessing your actions, I speak for all when I say that the Celestial Night Pack hails you as our new Alpha, Alpha Celine. The pack members nodded in agreement, their voices rising in a chorus of respect and acknowledgement. Alpha Celine, humbled by their support, yet filled with a sense of duty and pride, I stood before them. Adrian stood beside me, a steady presence. The remaining pack members exchanged impressed glances, ready to follow. They began to kneel, displaying their loyalty. Alpha Celine, they murmured together. Overwhelmed was an understatement. Grateful for Adrian standing beside me, proud of what I had become. I turned to him. Thank you, I whispered. Anything for our Alpha. Don't worry, I'll always be your beta, he assured, a teasing smile crossing his lips, which momentarily lightened the moment. A smile crept onto my face as memories of our shared journey flooded my mind. Adrian had never faltered, never let me down. Meeting his intense gaze, I spoke softly, You've always been by my side, Adrian. I couldn't have done this without you. Adrian smiled warmly. You'll never have to. Like I said, I'll always be here as your beta. I nodded, feeling grateful for everything, especially the unspoken yet palpable bond between us. Together, we stood prepared to lead the Celestial Night Pack. In the ensuing months, I worked tirelessly as Alpha, rebuilding trust and strengthening the pack with compassion and determination. Adrian remained steadfast as my beta, aiding in our leadership. The Celestial Night Pack forged alliances with neighboring packs, growing closer and finding a collective purpose. My vision of a united, resilient community materialized, moved by the trust and dedication of our pack. One serene night, Adrian and I stood on a hill, gazing over our territory bathed in moonlight, reflecting on our journey. Adrian turned to me, his eyes filled with pride and admiration. You've achieved wonders, Celine, he said softly. The pack is stronger than ever. Grateful for his unwavering support, I replied, We've achieved this together, Adrian. And together, we'll continue to do so. He nodded, understanding passing silently between us. Our bond had deepened through trials, and as we looked out over our thriving pack, I knew our journey as leaders was just beginning. I'll always be here for you, Celine, Adrian promised. He put his arms around my shoulders, holding me in his embrace. And I, for you, I affirmed, hugging him back tightly. My cheek could feel the warmth of his broad chest. We were confident that with our united pack behind us, we were ready to face any challenges ahead. And we'll be happy together. Adrian stared at me with deep feelings in his eyes. Then he lifted my chin and started kissing me. I kissed him back. I think, maybe this time, I found my true love. And it won't be a mistake anymore. Today's story is over. Thank you all for listening.